It's time to play some stuff! We've returned, not just to this series, and not just to Mists of Pandaria, but to Cataclysm content. Specifically, Tol Barad, for some mechanics discussion with the monk, and I'm just broke. I finally got a set of agility gear. So this monk is now back to having an agility set and an intellect set. Now, my druid is a moonkin with a bear tank secondary spec. So, I don't know, maybe I should send one of my other characters who isn't going to need 2 gear resets next time I start the Pandarian, the Pandarian part of the expansion and stuff like that. But finally, with only 8 gold left, grand total, and peanuts on all the other characters, Lockhart, the priest turned monk, finally has a full set of the gear, both types of gear sets. Now this, of course, we're here in Tol Barad to go mess around in Rustburg Village, because, interestingly enough, for whatever reason, the Cataclysm cloth is still worth way more on the auction house than the Mists of Pandaria cloth. I don't know why, but people actually buy it at those prices. I think a stack like costs, what, 5 times as... Where's my auctionator? That's Altaholic. That's Archie. Can I get auctionator up here? Actually, let me just no, Windwalker cloth. Vendors for $17.50, auctions for $79.92 per item. And if we can get some Ember Silk cloth, you'll see that it's much higher. I have no clue why previous expansion materials still sell all over the place, much less at the prices that they're at. But what I want to do today is I want to take the agility stance as a healer. She's in healer mode right now, so you can switch to snake stance to throw heals, and then tiger stance to fight without any secondary healing capabilities. Now, Blizzard, with the release of this expansion, has been trying to make it less painful for people to level as healers. Tanks have had it pretty easy because their mitigation abilities allowed them to kill a bunch of mobs at once without taking much damage, but healers have to stop healing in order to do damage. So from a mechanics standpoint, healers have had a bit of a disadvantage. And with some of the changes to healers, like the ability to do mana-neutral damage or token damage or something like that, it's actually possible to solo as a healer on your own. But with some healer types, it's become very interesting just how fun this can be. Like my priest, if I change his main spec from Discipline to Holy, my actual priest, a dwarf actually, if I change his main spec from Discipline to Holy and go into Chakra Smite stance, it's near mana-less DPS for a pretty decent amount. So here we are with a monk doing Tiger stance. Helm's turned on because it's Ninja Priest time. Let's go beat up various folks in this village and get some numbers. Keep in mind, my Retribution Paladin, an actual DPS character, at this gear level against these mobs, did 8,000 to 9,000 DPS single target. And already, 9,300 DPS as a healer! This is one of the reasons why I don't have a DPS spec with this monk, because Windwalker damage isn't that much higher than DPS mode on the, at least the healer spec. We're going to do some playing around some of these things, and the funny part is, switch to Snake Stance and heal up after all the fights. Actually, let's compare the strength of the heals, because one of the problems with healer monks is that there's no conversion rate, so you need 2 gear sets. If you change from one stance to the other, you need to change your gear in order to be effective. But how much of a penalty do you really take? We know we'll take a gigantic DPS penalty because intellect gear has no agility. So what are we looking at here? Well, let's compare, actually. Tiger stance with no conversion ratio. Oh, crap. Nope. Forget it. Oh, great. We're in the wrong... Oh, no, this is correct. We're still in the agility gear. Still the agility weapon. No more rogues sneak up on me. Let me just sit over behind these outhouses. So there's probably one back here, too. This place is always annoying, and Let's compare the strength of various heals and some other numbers here. Alright, agility gear in Tiger Stance. Okay, damage 6 to 9k. 6 to 9k. Switch to intellect gear. 2 to 3k, so a significant drop in what your melee abilities will do. And then, of course, intellect goes from thousands down to 171 in there as well. But what are we looking at in snake stance? Let's compare in snake stance too. Agility gear, we said 6 to 9. Snake stance and intellect gear, 4 to 5 per hit, because, of course, caster weapon, that's when you start falling behind. That's when you start falling behind. It's kind of like a discipline priest. You're not going to do as much damage. Discipline priests don't even do as much damage as a holy priest in smite mode, because discipline heals as you do damage. I'm wondering if Blizzard might be experimenting with the whole heal as you do damage versus heal or do damage for healers in terms of token healing, and tweaking those specs to match. So let's compare the strength of the bread and butter heal with intellect gear, which would be, what was that called? A soothing mist. I've been doing this through add-ons lately. So 4K, 4.4K, 4.4K, occasionally 8.9K, 4, 4, 4, 4, 4, 4, 4, 4, 4, and 8. Let's throw a few emergency heals, which is surging mist. 32K, 32K, 31K, 66K on a crit, so roughly 30s, and then 4s for the normal heal type thing. Oh, no, not Tiger Stance. Agility gear. Let's compare. 2.9, 2.9, 2.9, 2.9, because we're not getting any bonus from our intellect, because we don't have a lot of spell power. We don't have any spirit either, so whatever mana gets burned is going to regenerate very slowly. And what do we have for the emergency heal? 18K. So I don't know if this is intended or not, but if you're in your intellect, no, if you're in your agility gear and you switch to, is the intent to run around in agility gear with Tiger Stance when you're soloing, and then if you're not in a group healing situation, your heals without any bonuses from your gear in Snake Stance will be good or Serpent Stance, I should say, will be good enough that you don't need to worry about changing gear. I think that might be the intent here, that it's all about your gear and stuff. And if you're in your agility gear soloing like this, then you basically have heals equivalent to a hybrid, a secondary healer hybrid. But let's watch these numbers here. We're at 10k DPS, single target. Let's deliberately not use multiple target attacks on these guys. Keep everything single target. Or maybe we should. Da-da-da-da. Of course, key wave is fun. Okay, I give up. 9s. We're still getting 9s and 10s, though. Alright, ready? Let's just do this. And switch back to Tiger mode. And because we cast some heals, we got a mastery that generates healing spheres when doing this kind of stuff. We now have healing spheres nearby if needed. Which I just kicked that lady for 30k as a healer in DPS mode. I heard Resto Druids actually have been having some serious fun with this, because they have that intellect to agility conversion thing, and they've been running around in cat form leveling up, and then they just switch out of cat form and heal themselves if they get too low, or go to bear form or something like that, because they get agility for bear form too. Although if you're an off-spec druid, or if you're not a non-tank druid, I should say, in bear form you don't get the crit reduction and the stuff that makes you an actual tank, etc. Well, yeah, that's another thing we should compare. Crackling Jade Lightning, which I have glyphed, so it's Force Lightning. It's fun when you're in healer mode using that, and you're healing people via Force Lightning and crack a bunch of nerdy Star Wars jokes and stuff like that. So, okay, now we're finally first key wave is DPS loss, so we know that. But now we're finally getting down into where my Ret Paladin was as a dedicated DPS, by DPSing just as a healer. Also not getting as many crits. Which is weird, because why in the world am I hitting harder in DPS mode as a healer than in DPS mode as a tank? So let's get back to 100% here, and then spec switch over to tank mode, which of course the healing mode, which of course tanking as a monk is extremely clunky. Switch! Okay, so we do have agility. I have an intellect gear button on here, so I can compare gear for like auction house and stuff like that, and drops as well if I want to roll on an off spec. Okay, so let's reset everything. We knew we were getting 9 to 10k single target as a healer. So here we are in tank mode, and put the buff back up. I like this bell spell, by the way. It's kind of neat. Sometimes you go in energy mode, you just stand around spamming, and people are like, shut up with the bell! Alright, let's try this out. 9 to 10k as a Mistweaver in damage mode. What do we have as a tank? 5k. One actually kicked for 16k there, but not as much with the crits and stuff. I wonder. Use an artfully placed healing sphere instead of expel harm if needed. And of course, Gift of the Ox drops healing spheres that don't heal for as much. 6.8k. Still, this is Tiger stance as a monk. Not very impressive. Or could it be that the intent is, if you want to tough it out as a monk, then just go tank, level as a tank all the way up, and skip Tiger stance entirely. But of course, with the whole healer thing, because healer DPS is healer DPS, as the so-called fist weavers as they're called. Healer DPS isn't all that great with your intellect gear past a certain level, largely because of the top-end damage differences between between DPS staves and intellect staves. Of course, there's the penalty to top-end damage for spell power, because it was been the case for the past several years. The casters aren't going to go around smacking stuff with a staff. I don't know if Blizz might want to rethink that, but so we're at 6k in tank mode, spitting fire on everything and smashing beer kegs into everything. I know some people are probably playing monk tanks just to go around as a tank that throws beer at stuff. Of course, considering the Pandaria started out as an April Fool's joke, should I be surprised here? Oh, what do I need guard for? I'm not tanking. I got so many healing spheres, and my healing spheres on both specs are glyphed. So if we fight enough stuff, you're going to start seeing these little green blobs all over the place that as much as 3 minutes later, I can run back to and go to if I need healing. Which has been interesting, soloing instances and stuff like that, and soloing old instances that are below my level and stuff like that. Makes it interesting because you don't even have to think about healing. All you gotta do instead of like other classes like warriors with enraged regeneration or I'm thinking bear druids. Unlike other classes, you can just backtrack to heal yourself. Like, so those 2 orbs over there, they're still there. I got these 3 that are still here. Because of the glyph, they'll last about 3 to 5 minutes. So what are we doing for damage? 6k, which is crap. Which is complete crap. Yeah, alright. So far we're doing a heck of a lot of damage as a healer in DPS mode. Let's go into healer mode and compare. We already got some numbers for agility gear. We already got those numbers for agility gear and agility gear. Let's do it with intellect gear as well after we get all drunk up, I should say. Although technically it's a drink, so I was gonna say fooded up, but I'm thinking warriors that don't, eating and stuff like that. Actually, used to know some warriors back in Classic. They have so much buff food with them that literally you wouldn't need a healer. They would just tank everything to death and then sit there eating for 30 seconds after every pull. So let's see here. It's probably the weirdest dungeon group I've ever run with. Okay, so now we've got all intellect gear. Double check. Yep, 110 agility. All intellect gear. What are we pulling for numbers? 5,800. Now this is a sharp departure, probably because of the drop in top-end damage on caster weapons. This is a sharp departure from the pre-85 content, where you pretty much could DPS as a healer and do more damage than the Windwalkers. Personally, I think Windwalker DPS needs a buff. I don't know if Blizzard's doing that on purpose, because they've already taken great liberties with the monk archetype in RPGs here, with monks that can heal and tank. So I wonder if maybe they're keeping the DPS spec crappy on purpose, so maybe people will play more healers and tanks and cut down on some of these queue times, you know, even out the queue times a bit. So we still have the problems with the healer shortage and tank shortage, and if you queue as a DPS or you play a class that can only DPS, you pretty much almost can't use the dungeon finder, because your queues will just be that much longer. You might as well quest and dungeon at the same time. Ooh, there's a battle going on, and the Horde's on the offensive. Now I'll skip PvP. Monk PvP, I understand, is terrible for everyone but the Brewmaster. So, yeah, Blizzard's even acknowledged that healer and DPS representation for monks in PvP is too low. Makes me wonder what they're going to do to fix that. Hopefully nothing too drastic. 6k DPS. So, of course, everything I do heals people, so you don't want people doing sick damage and healing at the same time. It's got to be a choice, for balance sake. So I will choose agility. Hey, look, there's a healing sphere from when I was in tank mode. Drink! Alright, so it's pretty obvious what we need to do here. Now look at that blackout kick for 25k. Of course, a lot of the reason why this is working so well for me is because these are short fights against not lower level, but lower difficulty creatures, namely these old Cataclysm NPCs. How much am I up to for Ember Silk Cloth? 9. So the drops aren't what I thought they'd be. Maybe I should solo an old dungeon or something. One problem you run into if you try and troll the DPS queues as a healer monk, like I've done a couple of times. Of course, I have seen people troll the queues, queuing as DPS as healers before and stuff. At lower level difficulty, it won't matter as much, especially for regular 5-mans. But one thing I've noticed with the longer fights and instances, yeah, sure, you hit hard for a bit, but eventually you start getting energy starved, and you gotta start waiting a bit between all your kicks. So you're just hoping that you can that your party can down stuff fast enough so you don't get down to actually having to wait a second or two between moves. Because if you do blackout kick a lot, like on there was this dungeon actually in Uldum with that upwind, downwind dragon boss guy, where you get increased regeneration of stuff if you're upwind. You can pretty much do normal DPS on that boss, but that's pretty much it. Everywhere else you'll eventually wind up getting energy starved. I heard that rogues are having this problem too, and that's one of the big reasons why there's been a significant drop-off in people playing rogues. Could also be the lack of utility too. I mean, if you're DPS only, I mean, what's the point of having a rogue other than being cheap in PvP, ganking NPCs by sneaking around and stuff like that, and opening lockboxes? No. Rogues, it's interesting because rogues in other games were often more of a utility class. They weren't this stealth DPS type thing. They'd be able to like disarm traps and use magic items. I'm thinking D&D type stuff, of course, here, but yeah, see, look, I generated a healing sphere from Keywave in DPS mode as a healer. I think this will be the way that I level. So, no, I'll run around in agility gear, and the targeted quest rewards will be intellect gear and all that fun stuff. And that thing will stick around. I don't know how long the healing spheres are supposed to stick around, but this is probably what I'll end up doing. And then, of course, if I want to be goody two-shoe to somebody questing nearby, I'll throw like renewing mist on them or something. Switch to snake stance and toss renewing mist on them. Problem is, I'm a big fan of the Voodoo healing interface, which is what I'm using here, which is what this panel is down here. And most of my heals are now run through Voodoo to the point where I don't even have them set up properly on my bars because I'm so used to just... And it really helps too, because I can have everybody's health here. I can have everybody's health over here and pay attention to the fights and not be like the healer who winds up standing in the fire because the healer's only playing whack-a-mole with health bars and not looking at the entire rest of the screen. So, okay, what are we at? 7.7k. Let's reset those numbers because I'm sure I've dropped them down a bit with some of the stuff I've been doing, but it's also crit dependent too, and for high-end critical damage, I'm getting the most damage in this spec. So yeah, 27k. That's like a Templar's. No, Templar's verdict for my paladins in the 30s to 40s now. Yeah. So this will probably be the way that I. Ninja Priest my way to level 90 with this character. Tiger stance as a healer in agility gear, and if I need to throw some heals outside of instances, just turn on snake stance, even though the heals aren't going to get any buffs from anything. Same thing with healing up in the middle of the fight, too. It'd be kind of like, I'm sure my Moonkin will go through the same thing with the new glyph that lets Moonkins heal in combat as well. Interesting. You know, Blizzard has long had concentrated coolness as one of their design objectives in order to make it so that it's not entirely a total crossover between all the classes. So they may like have a character have skill number 1, and then if they want to make a similar skill for another character, they'll change some detail of it or something like that to keep it interesting, so it's not just the same ability with different graphics. But it'll be interesting to see what exactly Blizzard pulls off with that. So how much are we up to for cloth? 10, a stack of 10. So I just did all of this for only 10 Ember Silk cloth and a bunch of grays to sell. I think I may have triggered an anti-farming script or something, but I can't recommend Tol Barad enough, folks. We have seen, what, only one other person the entire time we've been here, so if you need quick money at low level 80 at 85, might as well work on your Tol Barad rep. Yeah. I mean, look, nobody's here anymore. It's old content. The only time people are going to show up is when the battle's going on like it is right now. So, yeah. And that combined with the weird economy on my server, like, that combined with the weird economy on my server, where, the weird economy where Ember Silk cloth sells more than Windwool cloth, I think it's called, for mists. Yeah. Auctions for 79.92 versus, let's break that up into a stack of 1. 79.92 versus 3 gold per piece of cloth for Ember Silk on this server, and you can get it with honor points too. So it's not like there has to be that big of a shortage. I guess there's just that many people leveling alts and professions that previous tiers, it's kind of like thorium, except it's cloth instead of something you mine. Thorium has been expensive for forever, I think. It might still be expensive now. That's the thing everyone used to joke about. Oh yeah, thorium is so expensive. Well, I guess Ember Silk is like the cloth version of thorium. Whatever. Anyways, so this has been fun. I think it's time to get back to Pandaland for a bit and do some more leveling, probably on my Paladin. I've been working on I might finally get my Paladin out of the Jade Forest, and then basically I think I'm going to go Paladin Monk to 90 first, and then bring the others on board too, because right now I don't have any money whatsoever on this account. Okay, we're back. Monk, Tol Barad, Rustburg Village. We'll skip the Ninja Priest look this time. So folks may be asking, what in the world am I doing back here? Can't I just do something different, like with maybe my main? Well, here's the thing. I know full well that there's going to be people out there who are going to immediately say, let's see some Windwalker numbers versus those mobs in Rustburg Village, and see what the numbers difference is. So let's do that. I'm certain that my numbers as the DPS spec, which spellbook and talents, specialization, Windwalker, changed it over to Windwalker spec, and we only have Tiger stance. We don't even get another stance we can use. But I imagine that the Windwalker numbers will be a little higher than even, remember the 9 to 10k we were averaging for a single target with as a Mistweaver in Tiger stance. I imagine we'll see very, very similar numbers with the Windwalker spec. But remember, folks, any higher numbers you see here comes at the expense of an extreme loss of utility. a monk as a DPS, as you can see, has no other options besides fight or die, pretty much. What do we have for utility? Like the Bell spell and healing spheres. You can waste energy blowing it on those. So it's not like, say, if you were DPSing as a Brewmaster, where you can switch to tank mode if the tank dies, or as a healer, where if the healer goes down for whatever reason, you can throw some notably weaker heals without even changing your gear. Or if the healer quits group in a 5-man, you can take over the healing until someone comes back, without having to change your spec. This time around, all we got is Tiger Stance. So, let's see what numbers we can pull. And remember, any numbers you see, now that I have Rising Sun Kick in my lineup, is at an expense of nowhere near as much utility. That's it. Oh, Ki Spear, Chi. The thing with Chi and Ki is I'm used to like the Greek Kai, so... And I've seen other games with monk abilities that are basically... Oh, here comes a rogue already. Other games with monk abilities that spell it KI and it's Ki. So yeah, we are seeing higher numbers as a dedicated DPS than we would as a healer. We are seeing higher numbers as a dedicated DPS, so already 12k damage. So for 1,000 more DPS and a lot less utility, you can be like a martial arts expert. I'm just thinking of that Rise of the Robots trailer from the videos I've seen of that game getting made fun of and stuff like that. Oh, there's the sparring bonus. How come my Rising Sun Kick got locked out? Oh, not enough chi. Oops. So what? 1,000 more DPS for a lot less utility. Okay, 1 to 2,000 more DPS. So you're looking at the healer doing 9 to 10, whereas 11 to 12 versus the same monster's single target as a Windwalker, but with the expense of a lot less utility. Let's fight one more thing. Fight that dwarf guy over there. Let's just go all out. And problem is I keep hitting... There we go. I gotta hit Rising Sun Kick more often. Let's swap Rising Sun Kick and Blackout Kick in the rotation, so I hit that first. Ooh, nice 18k healing sphere, so you get slightly stronger healing spheres with that type of stuff. And Expel Harm does more too. So let's reset the numbers one more time, see if we can get into like 13k or something like that. Keep in mind, I find Retribution Paladins to be very lackluster these days. My Rep Paladin was at 8 to 9k versus these guys. Same gear. And we're not going to use Spinning Crane Kicks. Let's make Tiger Palm attack number 5 so we can use the combo breaker for it. Okay, 12k, so now we're looking good. So let's open with Tiger Palm this time. And voila! Okay, now we're getting into the 11s and 12s range. But okay, 1,000 more DPS. 1,000 more DPS for a lot less utility is not really a trade-off I'm looking to make. Although it is nice to be like 3-shotting monsters. It is kind of like, druids, with the difference between cat druids and druids in cat form that aren't spec cat. Kind of like that kind of a difference. So okay, at the higher levels, maybe I just ran into some really bad players. I don't know, maybe I just ran into some really awful players while I was leveling up, but I used to out DPS Windwalker monks all the time while healing groups. So I don't know, maybe 85 is the great equalizer when finally monk DPS starts to actually amount to something. Alright. Still though, I don't want to lose the utility, and I've already got a lot of DPS. I already got enough DPS, folks. So, it's fun 4-shotting, 3-shotting, and 2-shotting stuff if things crit. But by and large, I think I'll stick with healing and tanking. Next question. Do I have enough gold to change back? Yep, I got just enough gold to get my Brewmaster spec back. So this has been... Hey, play some stuff Encore. Windwalker versus Tol Barad. Now, we can actually get back to working with my main and stuff. And I can get rid of this spec that maybe I'll come back to some other time, but I don't really see much of... I suppose as far as merit goes in terms of being a DPS as a monk, with those automatic healing spheres whenever you kill something, they actually are stronger than the ones I was generating as a tank. And they're glyphed, of course, because I have them glyphed on everything. So, might actually be a good thing to take note of. I don't know, maybe I just had some really bad monk DPS in my groups. Of course, you know how it gets. People think, oh, I can just mash buttons and do tons of damage and not have a clue what I'm doing, which is kind of like what I'm doing right now. Oh, that's nice. Healing sphere, go! Gotta love it. What is that, Hunter feign death and drop all the aggro to me? Griefer. We'll just run right out of town then. And dump this useless Spec. Okay, that's all over. Till next time, this has been a Play Some Stuff Encore. On MultimediaJay, let's get back to actually running the Paladin through Pandaria instead of messing around in this old Cataclysm content. This is MultimediaJay, signing off. Thanks for stopping by and game on!